we're joined by Jonny Sycamore, the Chief Customer Officer for Jaywing. Jonny, thanks very much for getting involved.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks, Job.
Especially in such a warm bloody day as well.
Just a bit. Yeah, I'm very grateful for the aircon in the office today.
I'm envious. Okay, Jonny, what we're going to do is we kind of ask a series of questions, a mixture of personal and some more kind of business related ones. But I think I'm going to start you off actually with quite a fun fact about yourself, because I must admit, I can see your responses. And this one was the most interesting one I've ever come across. So for anybody that's never met Jonny Sycamore, tell us a fun fact about you.
Well, I hope there's a few, but I think probably the most interesting one is that Tiger Woods once stayed in my house, which I'll tell you how it came about.
I was going to say, please tell me.
So I live in a place on the Lancashire coast, Lytham St Anne's. We've got a very famous golf course there, and yeah, we've been lucky enough to host the British Open golf there a few times over the years. But about I think it was probably about 25 years ago, the early 2000s, it was happening at Royal Lytham, and my parents used to live quite near the course, so they put their house on for what is, quite a lucrative 1 week renting agreement, and we had no idea beforehand, but we found out on about day 2. The estate agent called my dad and said, "Oh, I just thought you might like to know who's staying in your house." But yeah, it was all to do with security, because we had a security gate, and one of the rooms in the house was like completely hidden from view. Yeah. They had decided to put Tiger Woods in there, which was, as you can imagine, for a 20-year-old kind of golf fanatic, was like, wow, this is
especially
so cool.
Because that was the time frame when he was at his most dominant as well. He was just kind of winning absolutely everything during the early 2000s.
He was, well. Like an absolute global superstar at that point. So
I hope you left your house, the house in good condition. Obviously the recent headlines of Tiger Woods are less favourable. I guess you wouldn't want him staying in your house in the modern day. That's interesting.
No, it was all left in good nick, and there was a few bits and pieces that they obviously, I'm sure they do it everywhere they go, but there were some nice golf balls, a couple of night golf shirts that had been left, left for us. So yeah, it was
that's
good.
Fantastic. That's
very exciting all round, really.
Now on to a more kind of a serious question, but more of an interesting question. How did you actually get started in marketing? I'm not even going to say digital marketing, just kind of marketing in general.
Yeah, well, I was extremely fortunate, actually. I managed to get an internship after uni. I had no kind of big desire to get into marketing at university. I actually did Spanish, so I'd had a great time at Leeds Uni. Lived in Spain for a while. Was just kind of weighing up options, and this opportunity came about to do the 6-week internship at Saatchi & Saatchi, which obviously, huge name, and the opportunity to kind of go down to London and work in a agency environment and kind of see what all of that was about. And I loved it. I really enjoyed my time. I got to work on a couple of pitches, which was super interesting. But even at that stage, so this would be back in 2006, 20 years ago, I could just kind of really feel and sense the difference between what was happening in a very traditional agency like Saatchi's versus some of the other stuff that I was really interested in within digital media. So it was great in that I got fantastic experience, but it also gave me a real clarity around the fact that I wanted to work more on the digital side. So I ended up getting a freelance gig at MSM, which was good, was great, for a few months. And then got my first proper role, an account exec at a place called Agency Republic, which is one of the very early kind of great, I would say, digital creative agencies down in London, kind of in the early 2000s. Fantastic agency, great leadership. It was an Omnicom agency, like very well backed by the group. Yeah, I was, again, very, very fortunate. I got to work on O2, which at that time, they were spending more money in digital media as it was back then than anyone else. So it was nonstop, brilliant fun. I learned so much there in those early years that kind of really set me up for my whole career. And and then obviously stayed in London for a little while, worked in different agencies there, and took all of those skills with me over to Sydney, and was over there for a long time, and then back to Leeds just a few years ago.
So how long were you in Sydney for?
I was in Sydney for 10 years. So, or 9.5 years. Yeah, we moved over there in 2014, and then came back, towards the end of 2023. So, yeah,
Beautiful.
an unbelievable city, and fantastic in the creative industries, and certainly in our industry in terms of advertising. A brilliant place to work. And one of the great things about the work that we do is obviously it's a pretty universal industry, and in Sydney in particular, lots of great opportunities for people from all over the world to kind of go and explore that city.
Do you not miss, you've come back to Leeds. I've lived in Leeds for 20 years. Before that, I was in Canada and Germany, where I met my wife. If I could turn the clock back, I would have liked to have stayed in Germany permanently. But you've come to Leeds. I mean, do you no regrets coming to Leeds after being in Sydney?
No, I think, look, it's one of those things. We were there for a long time. We're very fortunate in that we've me and my wife and both our kids, we're all Australian citizens. So we've got passports. We, who knows what the future holds. We could always go back at some point if we wanted to. But really, it was a timing thing. Really, we had our kids over there. We wanted the kids to grow up around the grandparents and be close to family. And before our daughter Ruby, before she started school, we said, look, if we're coming back, this is the time to do it. So we came back, and it's been great. And we kind of said, I think we were maybe slightly naive, and that obviously both me and my wife had worked in London, then worked in Sydney, and both was working in the industry. And finding jobs had never been particularly hard, but then coming back to the Northwest, it was slightly different. And obviously that's where the Jaywing connection had come from. But no regrets now. I think, Jaywing has been an absolutely brilliant role for me personally. It's obviously, I don't live in Leeds, so there's a fair bit of travel.
Were you at Jaywing when Rob Shaw was there? Because obviously Rob was the previous person.
I listened to Rob.
So you kind of missed the time skills. You missed each other.
We missed each other. I've met Rob a couple of times in different events, a couple of like prolific North roundtables. Had some really good chats with Rob. Really big admirer, a lot of respect for what he's done and how he's kind of evolved his career. So very happy in Leeds. I was at uni here as well, so it was nice. I do know Leeds a little bit. Yeah, and it's all worked out really well. And the main reason we came home was to be close to the family, and obviously we have that now, which is Well,
listen, we've got a lot of questions, so I know it's warm. I'm not gonna take up too much. So we've covered the first few. Okay, so how do you switch off? What do you kind of like to do when you're not working for Jaywing? How do you relax?
Yeah, so I've got I mentioned two young kids, so a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, who are amazing and bags of fun and super high energy. And so obviously I travel a fair bit with work, and I'm away from home a fair bit. So really for me, switching off is being at home, being with my wife and the kids, and switching off in that sense is definitely not relaxing, but it's switching off in a completely different way. I think just spending time with with the family, watching the kids grow. My son is sport obsessed, so we're just getting into that age now, which is amazing, and I get to go and watch him play sport on the weekend.
Well, what's his favorite sport he's in at the moment?
So genuinely, he seems to like everything, which is great. But at some point, we'll have to try and get him to choose his favorites. But he plays football, he plays rugby. He strangely, I'm a big golf fan, so I watch a lot of golf on TV. He's obsessed with watching golf with me. And he's getting into all kinds of summer sports at the moment. They're doing a little mini cricket.
So let's say he was to become a professional rugby player and he was offered the chance to play in the World Cup for Australia or England. Where do you think he's going to go at the moment, or is it too early to say? Because I always say to my kids, you know, if they're any good, they could play for Northern Ireland, they could play for England,
Yeah.
and they could play for Germany.
Yeah.
They don't want to play for Northern Ireland because we're not very good at much. But I always say you're guaranteed to play. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's a really good question.
you should ask that question.
Look, I think, you know, my heart says I would love him to play for England, but I think if he ever got to that level and had the opportunity to play international sport, he could do what he likes, really.
Of course. Of course.
Absolutely.
Okay, so sorry to cut you off there.
That's
I'm
all right.
just conscious. So I've got a question here. It is, of all the things that you've done, what has been your proudest career achievement to date? I mean, it doesn't have to be one. If you've got a couple you want to say, that's fine.
Yeah, look, I think probably the thing I'm most proud of recently in this role is steering Jaywing through an acquisition. So we were bought last year by a financial services company called Stubborn Edge. Brilliant ownership, fantastic, modern, very kind of future focused business, and we've got grand ambitions for the group and for the agency and our future. But obviously, you know, being in a leadership role and a management role, you know, you want to protect your people, you want to protect the agency and everything that we've kind of built at Jaywing. So to be here 12 months on and having gone through that very successfully and being, you know, very well set up now for the future, I think, you know, professionally that's probably my biggest achievement, because it's, you know, it's involved supporting a lot of people, and I think that's been so important. So yeah, I think certainly on the kind of management side of things, that's definitely my proudest achievement. And then in terms of the work, I think loads of different highlights. I think, you know, I'm a huge believer in advertising, in marketing, like driving value, improving value, and rewarding effectiveness. So when I was in Australia, we did some really fun work with Hyundai over there, and won an Asia Pacific Effie's Award for a great campaign we did for one of their new SUVs. So I think getting an Effie, you know, is for me within the advertising world is probably right up there in terms of the different awards. So yeah, we're super proud of that.
I hope you and your colleagues all got complimentary top of the range cars at the time. That's great.
No, we didn't get cars, but we did get some very attractive rental agreements, temporary rental agreements, which we definitely took advantage of.
Well, that's great. Okay, now this is an interesting question, and this is the first time I've ever asked this question. It's come to me. I thought I really should ask this because I think this would be good. If you could interview any person, famous, celeb, or historical, who would it be?
It's a really interesting question. It's one that gets asked a lot, isn't it? It's kind of been the who would you have at the dinner party type vibe, and I really like it. I think for me, I'm into house music. I've really kind of grown up with that and used to DJ a lot and love that part of culture. And there's a guy called Larry Levan who was a real kind of house music pioneer back in the 70s and 80s in Chicago. And I think the reason I think of Larry Levan is I'm really interested, and this is obviously I think true of many creative experts or people who have pioneered different creative pursuits in different ways. I love the fact, or I'm so interested in the fact that someone has kind of taken something that exists in terms of, you know, records and different types of music, and then I'm going to flip this on its head. I'm going to use the technology in a way that it was never intended for, and mix these records together and try and take a track that's nothing like this track and somehow blend them together and make that into some kind of story and help people have a great time and kind of forget about life for a few hours. And I'd love to understand the mindset. Like, where did that idea come from?
Yeah.
How did he even think of that? How did he choose the music? You know, all of those kind of questions that I think for those types of geniuses who understand how to create new things, it was probably very easy in his head. But I would love to kind of get under the skin of that and understand it, because I think
do you know,
there's so much we could learn.
whenever you sent the answer over, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I had no idea who this guy was. So obviously, when I was trying to put the visual, I was trying to put the visual in the editorial.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, yeah, that's who it is. I was trying to find the right visual that was going to go and do it justice. That's a good one.
Yeah, no, it's a great picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on to a more serious question. What is the biggest opportunity in digital right now? Or I can open it up in marketing right now, in your opinion. And
Yeah.
obviously it's going to change. Constantly it's going to change.
Yeah.
But from your perspective.
I think from my perspective, at the moment, it really is about doubling down on creativity. I think, we're in a world where the technology changes constantly, the improvements in generative AI just get better and better. I mean, the stuff that they were showing at the Google conference last week in terms of the video production is just outstanding. I think anyone pushing against it now is, there's no point. It's coming, and the quality is going to get better and better. But I do think that with all of that said, the best work will still be the most creative work, and it's the work that will provide the most value. And whether that work is producing a piece of film or coming up with the right kind of prompts and vision and understanding of a story, and using technology to kind of help you do that, at the end of the day, the best ideas will still win, and will provide the best quality creative thinking. So I think as the pace of technology increases, as more and more people will be talking about cost efficiency and saving money on production, all of that everyone's talked about for the last few years. And I think the best idea is still fundamentally.
I think I need to give you an award right now, because every single person that ever answers that question in the current climate mentions AI, don't they? And obviously technology, it goes without saying, but it's getting a bit boring. Everybody just says the same thing. So it's nice to get your perspective on it. So that's good. Thanks very much. Okay, so now on to a slightly different question. The World Cup's coming up. World Cup football. Who, in your opinion, how's England going to do, and who's going to win the World Cup?
So I was reading the thing earlier. Actually, there's a guy. He's a German guy, but he's lived in the UK for 10 years, and he's come up with this modelling prediction thing that has got the last 3 World Cups right, and is predicting the Netherlands for this World Cup. So yeah, I'm not sure about that. I don't think they're going to win it, but that's what his system's saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like even more of a lottery this time around, because there's so many teams in it, but it's hard to look past France. I think you look at the quality of their squad and the players that they've got access to. If they can get the harmony right and get the team spirit right, they're always a decent shout. But we should have a good run as well. We've got a good manager. He seems to he's obviously placing a lot more emphasis on team cohesion, and I think he said himself, didn't he? He said, this is not about the best 26 players. It's not the
best, most talented players. It's the best team.
Yeah. Yes. Which I quite respect that. I think, there's a couple of eyebrow raisers with some of the people who weren't included, but if he feels he's got the best cohesion there and that's the right way for the team to play, then who knows? We've certainly got the talent to do it, and you'd expect us to get to at least the semi-finals, but it's always the same old names.
Another semi-final.
Yeah.
So I personally think France 100% are going to be thereabouts. I think Spain.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's interesting about Spain is this is the first time no player from Real Madrid is actually. And for anybody that follows football at the minute, clearly there's a lot of fighting within that club. So obviously the coach of Spain has clearly decided he wants no friction or personalities or egos. So for that reason, I do think England's got a good chance. I would love to see England win, obviously, because without saying. My wife would like to see Germany win, because she's German. I would love to see Northern Ireland win, but we're not in the World Cup, so I'll just have to dream. Okay, on to the next question then. So, okay, we covered about the biggest opportunity. So what's the biggest challenge facing marketing professionals right now? And this might be similar in effect to.
Yeah, I think, obviously it's almost impossible to talk about any kind of wider macro trends in the industry without mentioning AI. But I'm going to try and avoid it here because I think I see it as more of an opportunity, to be honest, for the industry, and not less of a challenge if it's kind of put in the right context. But I do think, and this is what we're seeing at the moment, and I think the industry at large is seeing that there are economic pressures, there are challenges that come with that, and I don't think, in tough times these tend to be the same challenges, and I think it's all of the the usual things around being asked to do more for less, just having scope squeezed, marketing within businesses tends to be one of the things that gets cut early on in kind of the current environment, which is proven to be a really ineffective model, because over the long term, if you invest in tougher economic times, it proves to kind of build brands and build effectiveness over time. I think the other thing is, again, all on the same theme, kind of we've really seen this, the longer decision making processes, like the ability to move quickly, and kind of has been hampered. I think there's a lot of businesses that struggle to get things moving as quickly in this type of climate. And having to kind of pitch and give up value, which we really try and not do, just to kind of get things over the line, is always challenging. But I think, look, this is nothing new. This is the current environment that we're in. But I think I'm definitely an optimist. I think even with all the headwinds, as I was saying before, it goes back to that same point. The best creativity, the best thinking, and the best agencies will win. There is still the opportunity to do great work, and sometimes being in those kind of tougher situations actually inspires even better thinking and better work. So yeah, I think it's about navigating that. It's about trusting, the people that you work with, and your colleagues and your clients, and just doing the right things to make sure that the best work is still coming through.
Yep. Thanks very much. Good answer there. So the good news is we're very near the end of all these questions for you, because I'm sure you need a good cold drink after this, or a nice lollipop. So
All good.
okay, on to a more lighthearted one. What's currently your favorite TV streaming show?
Yes, very good question. There's so much good TV, but I don't know what it is. As I've got older, I've found it harder to commit to TV shows. My wife watches so much TV, and I do. There's certain things that once I get into it, I really really love it. So there was a program on the BBC earlier this year that was written and directed by Mackenzie Crook, called Small Profits, which was just so refreshing. It was like wonderfully British TV. I don't think it couldn't have been made anywhere else in the world. But like heartwarming, funny, off the wall, 6.5-hour episodes. I would recommend anyone watches it. It's really really great fun. So I really enjoyed that. I love Rivals is back on.
I've not seen that. I've not seen it. I will check that out.
Yeah, it's just pure fun. Do you know what I mean? Like it's really entertaining TV. And I think the theme is, I was saying before, I think, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the stress of work, or the ability to just be able to kind of switch off and not think about stuff too much. As I get older, I'm all for fun, less intense.
Can I relate to that?
Gentle TV.
100%. So
yeah,
me and my wife went through a phase about 10, 15 years ago, watching all this serious stuff like Silent Witness and CSI and Murder. And it was all this kind of crazy stuff. And now, since COVID and whatever, we've just really get into this phase of watching, like, we love baking programs, gardening programs, crafting programs. Before I go to bed at night, just like you said, I've watched all my Seinfeld, so now I'm on to Curb Your Enthusiasm. I always love to get a dose of that before I go to bed, because it's very lighthearted, and it's nice to go to bed with something a bit more positive.
Yeah,
and I agree. I agree.
I've
noticed that with me. You kind of don't want the heavy stuff anymore.
Yeah. I just find it harder and harder. I've been watching Industry, which again is fantastic TV. but I've been watching it for months and months and months because every time I watch an episode, I'm like, right, I need a break. I can only handle
Do you know what?
one
I
of
love
those in a
watching.
while.
Do you watch the sports documentaries on Netflix? Because Full Swing is watching the latest episode or the latest
Yeah,
season. I love that kind of stuff as well.
fantastic. Yeah.
Brilliant,
No,
you know?
they're so well done, those documentaries now. Like they've got a great formula, haven't they?
I'm envious that I'm not a top level golf player because I look at how they live their lives. You know, they all
It's
live in
pretty good.
Florida by the coastline, and
Yeah.
they're all in these massive big houses, and they're all just very calm and relaxed. I'm thinking, how nice that would be.
It's not a bad lifestyle.
It's not a bad lifestyle. Right. The good news is this is your very, very last question. So you can go all in on this one. How do you create a standout agency in the current climate? I guess you're going to say the creative element, but how do you create a differentiator between you and all the hundreds and thousands of agencies that are out there?
Yeah, look, I think there's, there's how you obviously position yourself. There's how you talk about, all of the different things you do. But I think if we're honest about it as agencies, and I'm sure many agency leaders would agree, however differentiated we feel we are, there is another agency who does a very similar thing, and they probably do an incredibly good job of it as well. So I think for me, the differentiation, the standout, comes more from within rather than what you say about yourselves. And it is a cliche, but really it's people. It's great people who work well together. And I think one of the things I have learned, certainly in the last 4 or 5 years in a leadership position, is really understanding different personality types, where there are certain gaps, and being completely okay with the fact that you can have very different personalities who work well together. That sometimes within teams there are gaps, and you need to bring in the right type of people to fill those gaps, and just trying to kind of build that cohesion and make sure that you've got rounded teams, people that understand each other, and as I said, getting those different personalities working together, because that diversity is crucial.
Yeah.
If you had identikit teams in agencies, you just the work just wouldn't be there. So I think that's really important to me, making sure that in teams at every level. So obviously in leadership teams, in different disciplines within the agency, that you've got good people in the right position working well together. So the people is absolutely crucial. And I think one of the things that kind of goes along with that is, I'm a really big believer in this, is kind of the consistent message and the transparency within a business environment as well. I've worked in agencies where we've been told absolutely nothing by management, and you're kind of working in the dark, and you don't really know what you're working towards. I've worked in other fantastic agencies where commercial transparency is there, where all of the foundational information around the agency that you're working in is available and communicated, and it just, I think, builds an environment where people know what they're working towards. They understand, their role, and what they're building towards, and how they are part of a bigger whole. So that's something that we're really big on in Jaywing, is making sure that everyone across the agency has access to that information, that we socialize it properly, and that people know what they're working towards. And again, that all comes back to building a team of people who enjoy working together. And I think when you are in those conversations with prospects and clients, that comes shining through. If you get that bit right, that's the bit that clients buy. They don't buy the tagline or the "we're better at this" versus that. They buy the team, they buy the people. So that's what it is for me.
Very well said. Very, very well said. Jonny, listen, the last thing I'd like to do is just give you a chance to kind of say, is there anything you want to tell anybody that's watching or listening to this about Jaywing over the next 6 months to a year? Is there any exciting plans or anything that you want to shout about? Feel free.
Look, I think, just watch this space for Jaywing. I think, I'm hoping people who listen to this podcast will have seen some of the recent work for, the likes of Yorkshire Tea, and some of the creative that's coming out of the agency at the moment is absolutely outstanding. So I think there's lots more exciting work to come. I mentioned the fact that we're now part of a pretty exciting kind of ownership structure, which is very kind of future facing. So I think again, there's going to be some really interesting news that comes out about that over the next kind of 12 to 18 months. I can't go into too much detail, but yeah, I think for Jaywing, it's definitely watch this space, keep an eye on the work, and yeah, hopefully you'll see some great stuff coming out of the agency.
Thanks very much for getting involved today. It was very, very nice to meet you. Interesting to hear all the different things you've had to say. Thanks very much, Jonny, and good luck for the future.
Cheers, John. No, really appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It's been great to chat.